Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case.
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry. Today's guest is Scylla Gardiner. With more than 30 plus years of business development and 20 years of proposal experience, Scylla remains passionate about her role in winning new business. She recently joined nFold, South Africa's leading strategic proposal pitch consulting organization, after leading the pursuits and proposal team at the PwC South Africa for the last few years. She has started up many bid office functions in various organizations in her career and is focused on being client-centric, delivering quality outputs, and building strong client relationships. Scylla is APMP practitioner qualified. Welcome, Scylla, to Scribble Talk. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar, for having me.
So then let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about where you're born and your high school and education.
My high school education was many years ago, as you know. I did my my schooling in Pretoria, South Africa. Pretoria is the capital of South Africa, although not the revenue capital, if that makes sense. And yeah.
Perfect. Were you born in Pretoria always, or like were you living in Pretoria all the time, or were you born in a different place and you moved to Pretoria?
Yeah, no, I was born in Pretoria in a little maternity hospital in the center of Pretoria, the city, and I grew up for most of my life. I grew up in and around an area called Centurion, which is slightly south of Pretoria, and only moved to Johannesburg about 12 years ago, but they are very close to one another. And so at the moment, I'm almost living right between the two.
Right, perfect. So after education, where did you end up? What was your very first job?
Well, believe it or not, Bhaskar, my first job was designing kitchens. I studied interior design, yes, and you wonder how we end up in the proposal profession, but back then, I suppose, there was no such thing. So I studied interior design, and then I went on to work at, my first job ever was designing kitchens, which was actually such an amazing job for a young girl. I don't think I was even 20 yet when I got that job. And yeah, and then obviously moved through several jobs over the years, and then landed, in predominantly in sales, in IT or ICT for my younger years, and ended up in a proposal role about 21 years ago, and that's easy to remember because my younger daughter turned 21 the other day, and she was a very small girl when I started in proposals specifically. Yeah, and it's been a long many years of developing, which is fantastic, of course, and learning something new every single day. So yeah, so I've come a long way, I suppose, like everybody, right? But having been probably one of the first APMP members in South Africa, in the South African chapter. In fact, we were the founding members. It's been really interesting to see how our careers have developed, how our focus has sort of been honed, and our skills have been improved on over the years. As we've developed.
Totally, Scylla. Scylla, when you look back as a 20-year-old, you were involved on many interior designing projects. Any memorable projects comes to your mind?
No, I didn't really have, I didn't really work on interior design projects. Like I say, I didn't work in interior design. But I ended up, like, the kitchen design was the only time I worked for an interior design company for a short while, but not as a designer, if that makes sense. But I must say, it was very interesting getting my first job. I remember walking into this recruitment agency as a very young, very shy, believe it or not, 19-year-old or whatever the case was, or 18, 19-year-old, and with a roll of drawings under my arm, and it was to be interviewed for this kitchen designer position. And the lady took one look at me and she said, "Oh no, I think you're a bit too young, and I don't think you would understand what is required in a kitchen may be necessarily," which is actually quite a strange thing to say, but and then and as I was literally walking out, after she chatted to me for a few minutes, but I sort of felt like I was dismissed, and as I was walking out of her offices, I had this roll of drawings under my arm, and she said, "Sorry, can I see those? What are they?" And I said, "No, that's some of my work from my studies." And she took a look at them and she said, "Oh, hold on a second. Let me get hold of the owner of the company." And that's it's an interesting lesson in not judging a book by its cover, perhaps, right?
What an interesting thing. I mean, I think we all start somewhere, and as you rightly said, the initial perception of a person is very different. I'm glad that from then on, 10+ years in different careers, and you entered the proposal world. Do you remember your very first proposal, Scylla, or the early proposals that you worked on?
Oh, Lord, Bhaskar, no, unfortunately not. I do have a funny little story, though, of many years ago. I was a very young mother, and we were working on a proposal over the weekend, and it was long before we had proper servers and backups and autosave and all sorts of stuff. I don't even think we had Microsoft Office back then. And we were working frantically on a proposal on a Sunday, and I'd had to bring my daughter into the office with me. And we worked on these dumb terminals, so they didn't have their own storage. And my older daughter, who was about 2 years old at the time, had walked into the mail room where the server sat, and she switched the plug off at the server, and we lost all the work we'd been doing. Can't tell you which client it was for or what the value was, but I can tell you it was quite devastating, so we had to start from scratch.
Oh my God, I think those sort of nightmare stories. We hope time to recover and redo it. But that's good. And I think because you've always been part of the South African proposal industry for a long time now, Scylla. How about how the industry evolved over the years in parallel with your career, so that might be a fascinating story for the listeners.
No, it was a pleasure. The interesting thing is, when I started in proper proposal or bid coordination initially, if that would probably be the correct term, it wasn't a profession, or it wasn't a known profession at any rate. Definitely we didn't, as I say, we didn't have the APMP. So it's been really interesting to watch. I had a fantastic mentor who taught me a huge amount about bid management, a gentleman by the name of Bill Graham, and really got me into a point where I was, well versed in this fairly new job that not many people were prepared for, right? But I mean, we learned so many things, and I've watched, just making a joke about the server being switched off. I've watched so many things happen over the years, including, the technology that we have these days, and the fact that I was with PwC when we went into lockdown here in South Africa with COVID, and I just saw how quickly everybody adapted to doing all these meetings online, to collaborating on documents electronically. I was getting training using various different different tools and so on. So we really have gone a huge distance. And I'm sure everybody, anyone that might listen to this, regardless of where you are based, and if you have been working in the profession for that many years, I think you probably would see parallels in that. But yeah, no, we definitely have come a huge way. We didn't have an APMP, as an example, until 2009 here in South Africa. So it wasn't really a formalized process always. There was a lot of discovery to be made, and coming up with our own templates, our own checklists, our own methodologies, our own processes, and so on, built on some best practice, but it wasn't quite as easily accessible as it is now.
Nice, Scylla. So in that 20+ odd careers, Scylla, any proposals coming to your mind, good or bad, for different reasons?
Oh, there's so many that are phenomenal. And I think the most recent example I can think of is one that we worked on for a large chemicals and explosives company. They are South African based, but they do have global operations. And we worked on a proposal for them, a huge proposal for them last year, I think it was. Yes, early, sort of this time last year. But it was a 4 or 5 month proposal process. Very interesting because of some of the curveballs that COVID had thrown our way. So we ended up, not only was it was fascinating for me because I sat in what was called a site meeting, but the site meeting was actually held virtually. And it was a full day of meetings with different teams, from the business, the client's business, listening to their different stakeholders tell us about the business and so on. And it gave us, well, certainly gave me huge insights, and I'm sure the rest of the team too, into the client's business, which of course, and we knew them because we were at that stage the external auditors, and this was an internal audit pitch, but it was unusual in that the most interesting thing I've seen, or certainly the most recent interesting thing I've seen, was that when we did the client pitches, the client asked us and EY to host the internal audit pitch and the external audit pitch respectively at our offices, because their offices weren't big enough for the number of people they were anticipating, taking social distancing and so on into account. So we had to, one of my favorite sayings, and I'm sure a lot of proposal managers know and use this one regularly, but it was like herding cats. And we had to logistically try and get everything sorted out so that there was there could be absolutely no perception or no crossover in terms of, anyone seeing something they shouldn't in terms of the presentations and so on. So we had to have there was just all sorts of interesting hoops we had to jump through, and it was really quite a phenomenal proposal. Very great output that we had. The proposal itself was I think top notch, very nicely done, very well written, and very client centric, which of course is what we always aim for, right? And yes, it ended up in a win for PwC, which was fantastic. But it really was quite an unusual one. Then, as far as bad ones go, Bhaskar, there probably are more than more than I can remember. But there's one in particular that just popped into my head, and I'm sure everybody would laugh at this, because we were working through the night, as we are prone to do. And at some stage, one of my colleagues came to me sort of looking very sheepish, and she said to me, don't panic, but I threw the original signed document into the recycle bin, and it was one of these recycle bins that's padlocked and this, that, the next. This was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and so she went off. Actually, I'm not even sure if she told me before she found a way to actually break this thing open and get all the pages out, because I mean the signatories had gone home. And anyway, so that was quite a funny story. And yes, we did also go on to win that one, which was lucky, but but it was quite a, we still giggle about it today. I'm sure people have got stories like that to tell too, right?
Totally, Scylla. I think we all have stories. Because, yeah, we can only laugh about it now, but I can only imagine at that point the stress that goes through. That's brilliant. Scylla, at what point in your proposal career did you come across APMP as an industry body, and talk us through being part of the South African APMP chapter and the related?
So it was, like I say, it was around 2009. A lady called Sandy Pullinger, who was very involved with the APMP, I think even at a global level at one stage. Sandy had then decided, right, it's time. I think there were only 2 members of the APMP. There was no chapter in South Africa at that stage, and Sandy was one of those. And yeah, so we kicked off a South African chapter. Sandy was looking for volunteers to be directors and so on. So I was one of the directors for 9 years, and one of, committee member on and off for several years too. And, we basically started it from scratch. And I remember we had the photograph of those of us who were founding members that we took our first event ever. That was on our website for many years, but I think it's disappeared by now. We were all much younger, less grey. And yeah, and it's been a great journey. I designed our first website with absolutely no experience and no idea what I was doing, but nevertheless got it done, and it worked beautifully until it was replaced by something a little bit more fit for purpose a couple of years later. And I did my foundation certification the following year in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. No, it was 2012, I believe. And then took a very long time to do my practitioner, which I only completed in November last year, because I realized it really was time to get with it now, and plan to do my professional. But I think, I've attended I think I've attended every single annual conference we've had here in South Africa. The last 2 have been virtual. And interestingly, and I'm not sure if you've spoken to anyone from the South African chapter before, but interestingly, our annual conference for the last 2 years was run in conjunction with the supply chain. It's called smart procurement, the supply chain sort of body. So we were almost in a situation where and there's been some very nice synergies over the years, but where we've been, where we were speaking to our customers or to our evaluators, or to the people that were issuing the tenders we were responding to. So it's a very interesting switch. And gave me some really good insights in terms of how our clients think, what they're wanting to see, and it's good to meet the people behind the, obviously they're thousands, but the people that are behind issuing these tenders to us, and understanding exactly what it is they want to see in terms of compliance.
That's brilliant. I mean, it's always good to hear how few people come along together, because end of the day, this is one body. You already have a long proposal career in addition to the family, plus to give up time to set up something from scratch with the like-minded people takes a lot. Yeah. But thank you to you and the rest of the members. You talked also
thank you
journey and other things, because as we grow, I think the South African chapter is growing as we speak, but it's always the first 10, first 25 that's the hardest part. I think once they go and then they become your advocates, and then gradually it just builds up from here. But yeah, kudos to you and your team.
Well, thank you, and kudos goes mainly to Sandy, as I say, who was definitely the proponent, if that's the right word. She was the one that lit the fire and got us all passionate about, about the APMP and about that best practice that is shared so beautifully, via that platform. So
that's it. And again, we have been chasing Sandy for a long time. Sandy, if you do listen, please do drop it.
I'll tell her to listen to this. All right. I'll ask her very nicely.
Like Sandy, there are many people who have given so much to the industry body, but they don't want to come and share their stories, mainly because they never did this for their own whatever the purpose. They did it for the community, and that's what makes us even more exciting to showcase these people.
Right, yeah, for sure.
That's it. But thank you, Scylla, for that. I think we talked about your early life career, South Africa, APMP, your proposal, and other stuff. I think before I hand over you to Ashley, talk us through the 3 things not many people know about you, Scylla.
Oh, I know that. So I don't think a lot of people do know that I'm a single mother to 2 girls, both adult girls now. As I said, a 30-year-old and a 21-year-old. But I think a lot of people don't realize that I brought them up on my own, from and they are at my absolute, they are the lights in my life, and they make it all worthwhile. One of the other things that I think I mentioned it early on, I'm quite an intense introvert. I have my moments where I can seem like I'm the life of the party. but I actually am quite, I really enjoy my own company. I'm one of those people that doesn't need to be entertained, which is quite interesting. Yeah. And then what was the third thing? Oh yes, my daughter picked this up the other day. I'm a real Winnie the Pooh fan and always have been. So there's my 3 things.
Perfect, Scylla. Thank you for that, Scylla. I think Ashley will do a deeper about this and also your hobbies and interests and anything else that you missed so far. Thank you, Scylla.
Thank you so much.
Wow, Scylla. So how did your daughter just pick up on your love for Winnie the Pooh? Do you collect Winnie the Pooh? Do you read books? What demonstrates your passion?
Well, it was strange because it was my birthday in March, and my older daughter bought me a couple of notebooks for work. I scribble all the time, so it's great that I'm on Scribble Talk. And 2 of them were Tigger from Winnie the Pooh, and the other one was Eeyore, I think. And look, I love animals. I absolutely adore animals. I have far too many, but. And I think because my older daughter knew that, and my younger daughter was a little bit, sort of taken aback by it. But she wasn't aware. But I even used to hand paint Winnie the Pooh greeting cards and sell them when I was younger. A little watercolor, 5 different characters in a little packet with the envelopes and so on. So I've always loved Winnie the Pooh since I was a young girl, and right through, I've sort of bombarded my children with it, whether they wanted it or not. They're wonderful stories.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And your 2 daughters, tell us a little bit more about your 2 daughters. We can tell that they mean so much to you.
Oh, they do. Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, my older daughter is Tristan. She has a boy's name, so I have an unpronounceable name. She has a boy's name. She's 30 years old now, as I said. She's a graduate in psychology and criminology.
Wow.
And she spent about three years ago or so. She spent 15 months in China teaching English, which was a really phenomenal experience for her.
Yeah.
Can't say the word phenomenal. I don't know if you can pick that. And my younger daughter, Katerina, she's just turned 21 one. In fact, the two girls have a birthday one day apart, 9 years and 1 day apart.
Wow.
So the 19th and 20th of October. So that's, and they turned 30 and 21 last year, which was phenomenal. We had a lovely party. Social distancing taken into account, we had a lovely party. She's currently third year studying architecture. At the University of the Witwatersrand, also known as WITS in Johannesburg. And yeah, she's phenomenal. They're both equestrians, they ride horses, and as I say, they really are the best work I've ever done, let's put it that way.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. And then I understand you have quite a few animals at home as well.
You're not wrong, Ashley. I think that at one stage we had 17 animals, okay?
Oh,
but we were living on a farm, and we have cut that down now to, well, shame, sorry, that sounds terrible, because some of them, you know, we had horses and so on, so we sold a horse, but, you know, we've lost a few over the years. We currently have, I think, just bear with me, 8 animals. So we have 4 beautiful dogs, 3 cats, and one very old horse, who's living out her best, her olden years as a paddock ornament, as we call it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. Oh.
It is a lot. It is a lot. You can imagine the vet bills over the years, right?
Oh, no, I can't even begin to imagine when you had, you know, what did you say, like 17 at home?
17, yeah. So, and 2 of those were donkeys, by the way, and they were gorgeous.
Oh my goodness.
So I never have a clean house. I think that goes without saying, but I have a very full heart.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so we're going to pivot over into our rapid random fire questions round. Also, we sometimes call this lovingly the Nutters round after Howard Nut. So no right or wrong answer, just quick response. If you don't have an answer, we can pass on. Don't worry about it.
Great stuff.
Okay. If you could build anything you wanted to, what would it be?
Probably something to do with an animal shelter. Yeah. I'm the lady who'd love to have all the Dalmatians at the end of the 101 Dalmatians movie.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't
You'd be
it?
back to your very high vet bills, though. If you had a choice, which animal would you be and why?
I'd be a horse, definitely. And because they are such amazing animals to work with. The therapy aspect of working with horses is yeah, and you know, I mean, it's the same, I suppose, as with many animals are like that, but yeah, and they just really, I often say to people, even though I'm not particularly spiritual or anything, but I often say God spent more time on the horses than he did on us humans, I think.
Oh my goodness. If we were to play hide and seek right now, where would you hide?
Away from the pressing deadlines and the last minute proposals, anywhere that no one could find me. Yeah, no, I'd probably hide in a tree. Knowing me, I probably wouldn't get out of it. But I'd definitely.
Quite a smart hiding place. No, people don't always look up, right?
Exactly.
What vegetable would you pick for a fight against a 10-year-old?
Broccoli.
That's a good one. Who do you think would win, Superman or Batman?
Superman.
Yeah. Are you a Superman fan?
Well, no, not that much actually. I'm more of a Marvel fan, but that was probably, I'm going to get smacked by somebody for that answer.
What is the greatest risk you've ever taken?
Oh, to get very deep, keeping my oldest daughter when I had no support. That was the biggest risk with the biggest payoff, let me tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. What has been your greatest kitchen mistake?
I do remember baking a cake with a friend of mine when I was in my teens, or maybe even slightly younger than that. And we, instead of using flour in her kitchen, we used powdered milk. and the cake rose and rose, and then all of a sudden it just fell flat.
Oh my goodness. What is the best name you could think of for a cat?
We've had so many, and one of my favorites was Zurg, named after the Emperor Zurg in, I think it's Toy Story.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Terry Pratchett had the most amazing book called The Unadulterated Cat, I think it is. And I loaned my copy to somebody, but he has some great names for cats in there. It should be anything you can shout out loud while banging a fork against its food bowl at 12 o'clock at night.
Absolutely. What would be the hardest thing for you to give up?
I think probably the most difficult thing for me would be, when my children fly the nest eventually. Although I don't think it would be difficult to give up. So let me change my answer then, because to coffee. I've already given up the caffeine in coffee. I've just not given up the coffee itself yet.
Yeah, I can relate to that, definitely. If you were to write a book about yourself, what would you name it?
Weirdo. There you go. There's an answer.
What is the most interesting place you've ever been to?
Jamaica. I absolutely loved it.
And what did you love? Just the weather, the people, the food, or just all of the above?
Yeah, look, we didn't stay on, we didn't actually, it was on a cruise. So it was a day stop, and it was just the people were so friendly. It's beautiful. We saw some fantastic sights. And it was just, it's just, I don't know, a very sort of, it seems like a very chilled out, down to earth place, which I really love.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Those types of places are so important when we have so much stress in our lives, right?
Exactly.
So who are the people who've been the most influential in your life and career?
So in my life, I'd say my parents. They really are quite phenomenal. And in my career, I think, like I mentioned, Bill Graham earlier on. And Bill, if you ever listen to this, well done. And then my most recent, before leaving PwC, my most recent leader was a gentleman named Anton van Wyk. And Anton was really, he was my coach as well as my leader, and he was one of the very senior partners at PwC. Just a very down-to-earth guy with a great sense of humor, and he really did help me a lot in terms of making some quite, intense career decisions. And he was very understanding and so on. And it reminds you that when you lead when you lead your team, that that kind of behavior is really, really appreciated by people.
Absolutely. So what is one personal trait you like most about yourself?
I love that I'm always punctual, and I say always. Okay, obviously there is a 2% margin of error there, but I believe in showing up and being reliable, and I absolutely hate being late.
Oh wow, yeah, that's impressive. I'm not quite a punctual person myself, but I do try my best when in-person things are required.
Another cup of coffee will sort that out.
Absolutely. So what have you observed lately, particularly in these COVID times, that has reminded you that people are kind or good?
Oh, I don't know. I think especially at the beginning of COVID, and I can only obviously speak about what happened in South Africa, but I'm assuming it happened in a number of countries, and we have obviously quite a high unemployment rate here in South Africa, which is quite terrifying and sad at the same time. And there was so much outreach and community support to people, food parcels, etc., etc. People asking us to leave food on our pavements, and and they were collecting and were taking it to the less fortunate, etc. And that really that warmed my heart immensely, I must say.
Yeah.
It reminds us that yes, actually there are people out there that truly do care.
Oh, so nice. What a beautiful story there. What is one common myth about our profession that you'd like to debunk?
That we're not professionals. Sorry, that was something that came up the other day in a workshop I attended, and is that very often proposal bid people and so on are considered. Maybe it's because I have been in it for so long, and I sort of happened into it, whereas it's now more a considered career choice for a lot of people, and it wasn't really something that came up. But it is something I have seen where the teams that work really hard, work through the night, add the value, ensure that really the things I picked up in proposals will make your hair stand on end, and they're fixed, obviously. So if we could, we are professionals. We are as professional as lawyers, accountants, doctors, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So yeah, I'm sure there would be a lot of nodding heads on that one.
Yes. What advice would you like to give your fellow bid and proposal professionals who are listening today? For the younger ones, those starting out, the advice would be slightly different for those that are more seasoned. But so let's focus on them. It does get easier the more you practice. The more the more proposals you do, the more you write, whatever it is that you're involved in terms of proposal preparation. It gets easier and easier as you do it. And initially when you try and write a value proposition, it's quite terrifying, especially if you don't know the client, don't know the ins and outs and so on. But the more you practice it, the more naturally you can do it, of course, which is I think fairly obvious, but it is something to remember when you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Absolutely. Yes. Particularly early on, right? It can be daunting and overwhelming, and, it's reassuring, I think, for younger professionals to be reminded of that.
Yes. Yeah.
So Scylla, you've had such an amazing career. You've accomplished so much. We're curious, what's next for you? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Very, very interesting question. I would obviously love to do my professional certification through the APMP, which I'm planning to do as soon as possible, as soon as things calm down to a panic, as I like to say. And there is a fairly good chance that there's a move to New Zealand in my near future too. Initially just to work, but my end goal, my desired outcome here would be to move there, get citizenship, and live in New Zealand, which is a very sad thing to admit because I love my country. But there are reasons that I would very, very much love to go and live there.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like, such a great place to move and to live. And would you potentially retire there?
Yes. Well, I'd hope to do that if I could afford to.
Yeah.
The only issue, of course, with New Zealand is that the cost of living is a little higher than in certain other places and so on. But I believe where there's a will, right, there's a way. We'll get there.
Absolutely.
All these cliches, but it is true.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So Scylla, is there anything about your life or career that you would hope to talk about today that we haven't touched upon?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything, actually. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things, of course, but our time is limited. But, you know, I think as long as I've spoken about my daughters and my career and the animals.
Yes, the important things, yes.
Then yeah, exactly. And notice career comes behind daughters. I don't know if you noticed that. Family is more important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a great thing for everyone.
You're there,
to remember,
Ashley.
right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what a great way to end the podcast today. Thank you so much, Scylla, for your time. It's really been a privilege to have you with us here at Scribble Talk. We wish you all the good health and happiness. Please continue to inspire the bid and proposal industry colleagues around you and everyone else. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchyscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.